Yo. Welcome back to another edition of the Men Who Cry podcast. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, review, tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend. If you do not do these things, I have to assume you do not tip your waitresses. On today's episode, another solo dolo tip for your boy, for me, because we are going to head heavy into these playoffs. And we're going to be talking about what I feel like is the biggest game in the NBA this season right now. We are talking about the Knicks versus the Celtics. This game is the biggest game, I believe, in the NBA history. In NBA, not NBA history, in the NBA this season for a vast array of reasons right now. The number one is, by the time you're listening to this, if the Knicks have won this game, this series is over. No team has ever come back from being down 0-3, while the Celtics have had this happen to them previously. They went down 0-3 to the Miami Heat a few years ago. They came all the way back to tie that series at 3 games apiece, albeit to lose the last game in blowout fashion at home in Game 7. So while it could still be interesting, it can still be a fight, it's over at that point. The reason why I can tell you that is the most important game of the NBA season, because at least for the Knicks perspective, they are treating it like the NBA season. If you go on any site that, this has been talked about now for a minute, if you go on any site, all the ticket prices just to get into the building are equivalent to what the prices were for the Super Bowl. The average price for Knicks tickets I've seen for between $700 and $800 to get in the door. It's also going to be the most important game for the season because I think of what the Celtics have actually built, being challenged by a team that I would say most people objectively think isn't as good as them. Whether you've had the 4 wins during the regular season, if you want to just go with the Celtics playoff history recently, any other factors, they have the best player in the series, or at least some are to believe that. And it's been a moment here where you look at them and see that this is really the first test that they've had really since they've won the title. And the fact that we will officially, I believe, enter a space where we are in a complete and utter parity era of the NBA. Now, I say all these things to say is this series is not over. We do not know who's going to win this game on Saturday. And it will be a game where everything is on the line for the Knicks. If you watch the post-game show from TNT, when Shaq and Kenny, Charles, and Ernie were speaking, I don't think Shaq necessarily makes a lot of great points. This one to me was fair, on the nose, and made the most sense. This is a must-win for the Knicks because this series right now, the point differential essentially is 3, right? Or 4 rather, and the Celtics can easily look at our shot quality is not going well. We've had 2 20-point leads in this series. They essentially just haven't been able to close these games, or for the rather part, they haven't been able to stem ties. And I do think we are now overrating what a 20-point lead is in the NBA, especially even the NBA playoffs. With the amount of threes that teams hit, the amount of 20-point leads, and even 30-point leads we have seen blown, not just in the postseason, but in the regular season. Having a 20-point lead now in basketball is, I would argue, an inflated version of having a 10-point lead in 2005. If you've been watching basketball as long as I have, if you got up 20 in 2002, the game was over. You couldn't make enough shots. You couldn't get enough foul draws. Obviously, the 3-point shot wasn't as used as much as it is right now. So 20-point leads were just like a thing that would stick around. Now, teams blow 20-point leads all the time in halves. We've seen it twice now in the play. We've seen it multiple times just in the playoffs, not just with the Knicks. Same thing with Cleveland and the Pacers. Well, the Pacers came back 20 points down in Cleveland to win that game. And we'll see how their series goes as they have a chance to now go up 3-0 against the number one seed in the East and the Cavaliers. And I think some of that part is being a little bit overblown. I do not think the fact that the Celtics have had this same problem for their entire run since they got Tatum and Brown to be their two guys. I always would argue this about any type of team and facility and how we are now in a state of parity, right? With all the rules changes, with all the CBA changes, you are just simply not going to have the ability to afford to have a roster made up of 3 All-Stars. It just won't happen, right? Can you be someone like Cleveland, right? Which is very different because they drafted 2 of their All-Stars and then they acquired the third in a trade. And they weren't paying Mobley until this season or next season, I guess, is when his contract will actually come into play. So that way you're able to get 3 All-Stars. And even so, are we convinced that all 3 of those guys are going to make the All-Star team next year? You'd probably say no, just because of the amount of talent and dispersing in the league. So because of all that, this might be, with this group of Celtics, the last run of it. But they've always had Tatum, they always had Brown. But the biggest issue of those guys, even going back to before they won the title, was what? When they get in close games, you get them in crunch time, they always tend to fall apart, mostly because they don't actually have a point guard. That's probably the one main chink in the armor of this Celtics team, is the fact that they never play close games, because they would always blow you out and be up by 10 or 8, and they can just keep you kind of at bay long enough before you're able to really get into that closing moments where you don't know who's going to win the game. And that has faltered them the last 2 games. Now, do I think that this team could lose another 20-point lead and lose again? That would be really tough to see. And honest to God, I can still see the Celtics winning this series. This is not a lock for anything. I would love to just look at the money line of who it is. I would figure that the Knicks are a slight favorite going into Saturday. But at the same point, that it would have to be very, very slight. Actually, you know what? I'm going to check right now to see what the line is for this game. Nope. I am absolutely wrong, because this is how you know the series is so unpredictable right now. The Boston Celtics are a -5.5 point favorite in Madison Square Garden, down 0-2. So what that tells me, and what I think is the reason why, as much as I want to go crazy and lose my stuff over this game or over these wins, is the fact that Vegas, and I think mostly everyone still sees as the Celtics to be a decidedly better basketball team than the Knicks. Whether it's the blowouts in the regular season, both of the 20-point leads that they had in this postseason, just their overall level of dominance over the last couple of seasons, and the matchups that they seem to present, the fact that they are that big of a favorite on the road in the game that, like I said, it's going to be one of the most raucous environments you will find in the NBA, it still speaks to the level of respect that this Boston Celtics team has, and you have to be able to respect that. But the reason why I feel like this is the reason why I was making the point of this being the biggest game in the history is because this is going to make a fundamental difference in how basketball is going to be played. If the Celtics come back from 2-0, beat whoever comes out between the Cavs and the Pacers, and go on to win another championship in back-to-back seasons, then the 3-point revolution is here, and there's no way that you're ever going to be able to go back from that point. It would be simply dead, the idea of winning on mid-range jumpers, tough buckets, and 2-point shots, if you simply think at the end of the day we are simply just going to get more threes up, and because of that we will win these games. And I generally hate the idea of what Boston is doing, even if I could agree with it mentally, right? And I do think there are a lot of similarities between what is happening now in basketball with what happened in baseball a couple years ago, where baseball got to a point where everything was just a home run, a strikeout, or a walk. The idea of getting a single, bunting, even though bunting's still a little dead, trying to get these little base hits was basically looked at as, don't try and do that. We are just trying to get launch angles and bat on ball hard contact, all these other things. And baseball had to come in and say, with that, all the relievers had to be like, no, we're changing this. And baseball has seen not just a financial gain, because I hate when people simply look at things as like a by any means, right? Where we are making money, therefore we are not doing anything wrong. And that doesn't necessarily make it the same case. People make bad buys all the time. And so baseball looked at it and says, we have a fundamental problem of what's happening, and the interest in our game is waning. And we need to do everything to push the interest of our game back up. And as you've seen, baseball has been way more talked about on this show, definitely, other platforms, and has revived, I think, a little bit of its space because of Rob Manfred, Theo Epstein, and everyone in the offices saying we need to make these changes for the betterment of our sport. I don't know if we are there yet with the NBA when it comes to the three-point shots because of this series right here. And this is why I've deemed this series and the way this is going as being a fundamental shift in what basketball will be like going forward. Because I generally think most people hate the way that the Celtics play. I think most people do not like the idea of you have layups, being passed up for 3-point shots. And the idea that they are hunting threes has always been the main kind of talking point with the Celtics, that they're not looking to take threes. They're hunting threes. They are rejecting open layups to take corner threes. That is what they have set to do. There's a still image floating around Twitter of Jason Tatum wide open at the right side, right corner. Jalen Brunson is on the ground. It's just Al Horford standing there, and he takes a three and he misses the shot. They were up 6 at the point, right? I personally don't. I think that's getting a little bit too much notoriety in the negative way, just because we know what happens in the end. But at the end of the day, like, that's a shot he needs to take from a still picture point. The context of it is different because your team has been bricking all these shots for so long, and you're so, into the game. At this point, you just need baskets. You just need points. The Knicks are the team that needs to generate threes and get threes and to shoot threes to get back into the game. And that's not what happened. And they ended up falling apart and crumbling down the stretch. So I think just overall, the impact of what this game is going to be something that I don't know if we have quite digested at this point. It's the biggest game, and this has definitely been said multiple times, the biggest game in this century for the New York Knicks. There are literally 25-year-olds who are not going to understand what the fuck's going on in this game. I mean, this is the biggest game in my life, personally. I was not watching the Knicks in 1999. I was playing with Legos or something. I don't even know what I was doing back then. But its impact on the sport and what it's actually going to mean is going to be very, very, very dead on of what possibly can take place. The second part of this is going to be for Jason Tatum. If I told you Jason Tatum's resume, if I close your eyes and I said, this is the resume of this person, I told you his resume, I told you his age, I told you the team that he did it for as well, you would say that has to be the best player in the NBA. You would, if I just showed you his resume, I put it on a screen, the amount of accomplishments this man has done before the age of 30, you would say this has to be the best player in the league without question. okay, or one of. He is in the discussion. And the fact that he still just doesn't have this kind of verb to him is just a weird kind of space with him, because he can do it all. You see a guy who's that talented. He is the most talented player on the court. I don't know how many times Jason Tatum walks on the court and there is another guy who is objectively a better player than him. I think he is that talented of a basketball player. But he needs to have his I'm that guy moment. And it's weird because you keep thinking that you're going to have this from this guy and they just don't ever come, right? And I am not calling him James Harden because he is historically, well, it'll be interesting to see historically which one of those guys will be considered to be a better player. I mean, look, as much as people want to crap on Harden, this man does have an MVP and finished top 3 multiple times for like a 5-year stretch. So I'm not going to denigrate what Harden has done. But in terms of just like an actual basketball player and what they are, I would argue that Tatum is a better basketball player than James Harden is. But he comes across with that same type of like, you're missing this like 10% of like, why is this happening? And yet he fills up the box score in so many ways that you would just say like, this guy is going to have these moments. He's had playoff moments before. The one that I always bring up is the one that he had where he was down 3-2, went into Milwaukee. Giannis had a great game, and he came back, and the Celtics won again, and they brought it back to Boston. They won the series. It's one of the most fascinating points for him, because I think that if he does lose this series, if the Celtics lose this series, God forbid they lose this series in like 5 or 6 games, which I don't think is going to happen. But let's say they don't even get to like a game 7, at this point. If that happens, I don't really know what that does for him in terms of how people look at him, because the accolades are forever. The rings last forever. He's not going to then become a worse player because of this. But then how do you talk about a player like this who has the pellets on the wall that he does, but you just sit there and go like, I don't think he's that guy. It's a real fork in the moment for him in terms of like his viewpoint, because this, like I said, this is the biggest game for the Celtics too, because last year you had all the talk about them not playing any of the best teams and getting into the finals and all those other things. And I've also said before, you can go through NBA history. We can do this with every single team about which guys were hurt, which guys missed this game, which guy was this important. I mean, fuck, you had Pistons fans trying to tell me that Isaiah Stewart was the reason why the Knicks were up 3-1. Again, Isaiah Stewart. Neither here nor there. He's on the precipice, I think, of becoming a Twitter meme for the rest of his life. And this guy is, if he stopped playing basketball today, is walking into the Hall of Fame. Walking into the Hall of Fame. He was like, I'm done playing ball. It's one of the, I honestly, as a lot of people call him the anomaly, is the name. He's almost a cognitive dissonance of what you see isn't what you know. What I know isn't what you see. Because what you know is that this guy should be one of the 3 best players in the league. And what I see is a guy who looks like he's choking. It looks like the pressure's getting to him. After he won a championship a year ago. And, it's going to be big on him and big on them. The next guy who has a lot of pressure on him is one Thomas Thibodeau, the coach of the New York Knicks, who, again, this is going to be his biggest, next couple of days ever. I said this before. I don't remember if I said this on the pod, and I need to start apologizing because there's things that I write down legitimately that I say to like my friends, and I don't bring it to the pod. I'm going to start like making like a point of just like reading off text threads that I say to people when I'm just in a stream of consciousness. But I did say that like this series is going to define Tom Thibodeau as far as Knicks fans. I don't care if they win the series. I don't care if they're losing 7 at this point now. It's going to define his career. A significant portion of Knicks fans hate this man. And it's going to be like that with every team. Every team hate their coach. This isn't anything new or special to New York. But the level of vitriol that this man receives, I think, is hilarious just because of what this franchise is, who runs this franchise in terms of the owner, the market that it's in, and very much the history of the franchise. He has been the best coach for this franchise this century. Bar none. It's not close. However, if they do find a way to lose this series, I don't think he'll ever bring the fans back. I think that fans, especially the way it is now, the fact that most fans coming into this series felt that they were dead to rights of winning this. They felt lucky to win a game. Shout out to Colin Cowherd, who for whatever reason went on a very weird kind of like flip-flop of a rant. 1 minute was like, Knicks are lucky to win a game. Then it's like, the Knicks should win this series because of analytics. And I'm like, wow, that was a nice little hard pivot. Neck turns. Didn't even recognize anything he said the day before or a couple days prior. But Thibs taking a lot of shit over his tenure, most because I believe most fans believe that he got Derrick Rose hurt, and they've never forgiven him since, which is where I think a lot of his ants comes in from. But you're seeing the method to his madness. While I do not necessarily love the fact that he plays his guys a lot of minutes in certain games, a lot of times it just comes down to like the game is clearly over, even though we just had a point about 20-point comebacks, but the game is clearly over and guys are still in the games. Those have really just been my personal complaints. But if you're in a game and you're trying to win a game and it's in like an important game, I don't really give a fuck if a dude's out there for 35 to 40 minutes. If you're trying to win the game, you're trying to win the game. Same thing. Next game one, Mikal Bridges played 51 minutes. Ain't no one cared, because at the end of the day, you're trying to win the game. But he's got to win now. Plain and simple. And for his legacy to be something where he came to New York, helped clean it up, but I think most people felt as if he is the coach to the next coach, kind of a bridge coach in some ways, has just been around him for the whole time. And he is on the precipice of something that he's only done one other time, and that's to make the conference finals. He's only made the conference finals once in his career. And this is a moment for him where not just that, the way that this thing is breaking, all eight teams left in the postseason, I think have a chance to win the championship. And I do not know the last time I can actively say that all 8 teams can legitimately win the championship this year. And to me, this is his best chance that he's ever going to have. A lot of times for Thibs' career, because he was in the Eastern Conference for a lot of it, and then was out west for only a year or two, I guess what was a year and a half before he got fired with the Timberwolves. But he was always running into those Heat teams, right? Those Heat teams would always beat him every single time. Now he's been in the Eastern Conference with the Knicks. First year, lost to the Hawks. The team wasn't very good. Missed the playoffs. Next year, was upset by Miami. Then the following year, a lot of people got hurt, upset by the Pacers. I don't know how many more chances that he's going to have to get this team where most people think that they would have never get to before. And it's going to be a lesson again in the idea of analytics and these places, because he is so against all of these things, even though I think load management is getting a little bit out of hand because it's not happening as much, I think, as people believe it to be. It's only with certain teams. But as you're still seeing, guys are still breaking down. Look at Cleveland. Cleveland is falling apart. And those guys 31 minutes, 32 minutes a game or less. They played an entire bench. They played 13, 14 guys. At the end of the day, the playoffs are this. I don't care how much you try and do this. The Warriors played 13 guys the other day because their best player got hurt. And Steve Kerr is clearly just trying to like find anything that he can to get some offense out of that team. But the playoffs go the same. It is anywhere between 8 and 6 guys playing in playoff games. It's just how it always goes and how it's done. And I do believe there is something to building up callus in your body to be able to handle that. I don't think that the first time you should ever play a 40-minute game should be in the playoffs. The first time you play a game, because your body is not prepared to do that, okay? You need to take the regular season seriously. You need to be able to build up that callus in your body to be able to play that. Because what if you are now in the NBA Finals and you are in overtime and you have played 36 minutes? Like, you got to play the next 5 straight. Like, your life depends on it. And if that's your first time doing it, you will fail. Because that is what we do as humans. We fail when we try something the first time. That's why you need repetition. That's why you need consistency. That's why you need your ability to do it over and over and over and over again. And I think a lot of that stuff doesn't get covered. And a lot of the stuff about his players getting hurt and breaking down is vibes. It's based off narratives. There's nothing behind it that actually backs this up. The Guardian did a great piece on breaking down the actual statistics and history of Tom Thibodeau, quote unquote, running his players in the ground. And there has been no evidence of it. And yet we have seen now Anthony Edwards might just be a different form of human, where he held his ankle, was going to be questionable. I thought he was out for the game, definitely. Walked back on the court and they played the rest of the game and it was fine. And also, he did the same thing in the other series where, like, it looked like his leg snapped. He just put it back in place. The craziest thing, because, again, we are looking at a different tier of humans. When it looked like Giannis broke his leg in was that game 4 or game 5? No, that might have been game 4 of Bucks Hawks. His knee looked like it just bent in. And it just put back in place. Another series that Trae Young didn't play the rest, and they were able to get to the finals. But, we don't bring that up. Where it looked like he broke his knee and just kind of snapped it back in place and just kept going, And then being like, oh, he's good in, like, the playoffs because they had the finals, shortly after that. So credit to those guys, credit to the medical staffs. But I do agree that he gets way more crap about something that I don't actually think is, like, a point for him. If you have guys and you coach long enough, you're going to have guys that get hurt. Dudes step on feet, dudes twist ankles, they land wrong. It's all about your ability to, can you fight through it? Can you play hard? Or is your body just not willing to take that all? And the last people who have things on the line, I do believe, are fans. And I think, like I said before with the 3-point shooting, is, do we want this to be the way that the sport is played, where more shots are taken from 3 than are from 2, from inside the arc? And I think from an aesthetic point, obviously, if it's with your team, you're just going to be focused on whatever your team does, and this is going to help your team win the game. But from an overall fan aspect of it, the way that people want to try and compare these Celtics teams to what those Warriors teams were very different. Most because they have Steph Curry. And Steph Curry is literally an anomaly. He is not of this world and of these types of shooters. And while I think as most fans have enjoyed 3-point shooting, from everything that I'm hearing, people are loving these NBA playoffs. And the scores aren't super high. I mean, I know the the Thunder put like almost 150 on the Nuggets, but that's one of those we good to get split kind of games, and the Thunder can really get scores like that, but they turn you over a lot. But most of these games are in the low hundreds, some of them in the 90s, some teams are in the 80s, and you're not hearing a word about like, oh, bad basketball and stuff. No, because like there's there's stakes, there's elements, there's a level of defense, a level of physicality, and you're not calling every little nonsense foul. This is the reason why I stand by it always, that guys like, James Harden tend to, and Joel Embiid, and those guys who are truly the foul grifters, don't rise to the level in the playoffs, because when you are so used to getting calls and you're so used to getting bumps and everything like that going your way, when you do not get those calls in the playoffs, it clearly affects the way that those guys play. Like, you can see how it will play. I'll never forget this. And I talked about this before. Game 4, Knicks versus Sixers. It's either a tied game or it's a 1-point game. Joel Embiid, they're inbounding the ball. Sixers are inbounding the ball. Joel Embiid is on the baseline on the left-hand side of the court. He gets the ball in. The Knicks, I don't know if they forgot or were surprised or it was just a quick inbound, but he's open, wide open. And Joel Embiid is one of the greatest shooting bigs, especially inside the paint, of all time. He is a great shooter. He's wide open. For whatever reason, he pump fakes, comes down with the ball, tries to go up, and gets stripped as he's going up. And then they go the other way. The Knicks end up winning that game, then winning that series. And the reason why I highlighted that play so much is that in your mind, you are so committed to getting fouls that you don't even realize, dog, you're open. You got to shoot the ball. No one was near him. If he simply caught it, turned, shot the ball, there's a very low percent chance I think Joel Embiid's missing a shot that close at the rim. But it gets back to how I think this is the way that fans want it. This is how people want to watch the game, instead of it just being like a parade to the free throw line and a bunch of threes being shot at. So yeah, this is a big game, not just for the Knicks, not just for the Celtics, but for the league. And it's a blessing that my fandom is somewhat a part of this. And the fact that this is going to be something that I think will be one of the games that we will be talking about long after the season is over. But that's all I had for y'all. Quick episode, just doing a little bit of breakdown of Knicks Celtics. Obviously be back talking about more things on the next episode for you guys. But like I said before, thank you guys so much for listening to the Men Who Cry podcast. Like, subscribe, review, and I'll be back with y'all next week. All right, y'all. I'm out.